Uh, in the last lecture, we have basically discussed about uh, the element declaration, what are the valid XML, and how to create a structured XML. So these general concepts we try to understand. Then continuing that on that basis, there are some differences that we can see between the HTML and XML. Okay, so there are some basic differences that you can identify based on its implementation. And first one is this part is HTML. Okay, the first one is HTML, and the second one is for the XML. And here you can see HTML cannot preserve white space. Anywhere you write normal, we just leave some empty spaces, it will try to truncate, it will simply truncate as a single space. So that is the main implementation in the HTML. But whereas in the XML, it can actually preserve the white space. So that is the basic first difference. Then it is not case sensitive, whereas we have understood that XML is pretty much case sensitive language. Even though if you are declaring uh, within a different case sensitive manner, it will simply give an error. And in XML, you must have exactly one root element. Here also that is same, and the root element is in this case HTML, not in caps. You can write in small also. So that is what the root element in HTML. But in XML, that is user defined. In this HTML, this is predefined. In this case, it is user defined. You can take what we have understood is XML is designed to be used actually. Okay, so it is generally being used by the programs. Even though humans can read and understand what actually was there in that particular document, but it is generally for the programs. But here HTML is actually for the users. It is not meant for the programs. Okay, so this is the basic difference between the HTML and XML. This is for humans, and this is for programs as well as for humans also. But generally, in most of the cases, in practical demonstrations, we can see it is generally for the programs only. Then HTML is used to mark up text so it can be displayed to users. XML is used to mark up data so it can be processed by the computers. So on the same line, okay, so on that same line, it is extended a bit. That is, the markup is for the display to the users. Here, the markup is to get processed by the computers. Only that is the difference. Okay, so 90% of the cases, 90 to 95% of the cases, it is generally for the computers only. But in 100% cases here, it is for humans. It is for humans. Okay. Then HTML is designed for specific application. XML has no specific application. It is designed for whatever use you need it for. So XML is actually universal, and we can understand that all the programs, irrespective of their architectures, interfaces, programs, technologies, this is simply applicable. But is HTML is designed only for a single purpose and a specific kind of applications like web applications or some web services. So these are the basic applications which are limited by this HTML. Then HTML is again only for the display, but XML is designed to do for the data exchanges. We can transmit the data using the XML. So you might have implemented some basic Android programming or any mobile application development. So normally JSON recently just took over the XML, but previous technology completely relied on this XML. So data exchanges means you got a mobile application and you got a server. So whatever the transmission that actually takes place is called as data exchange. All the data exchanges are normally were doing by this XML technology. Nowadays also you can take this as well as JSON. Okay, so this is already available for you whenever you are creating Android or any other mobile based applications. So it is still there. Then HTML describes both structure. So structure is defined here, and as well as for the appearances. Okay, so you can see markup tags that are predefined. Sometimes it is font, sometimes it is I, sometimes it is strong. So strong is also one kind of formatting. Then many tags are predefined, but whereas in HTML, structure also having some importance. So that's why special tags dedicated for the structure, special tags were dedicated for the structure, and some special tags dedicated for the appearance. So both these are available. But whereas XML describes only the content. Okay, so only it will give the content. It will never go to the formatting, or it will never go to the actual complete structure of the document. So structure is we are going to design, but the essence is completely on the content. तो XML का इम्पोर्टेंस कंटेंट के ऊपर ज्यादा है. ओके, सो कंटेंट के ऊपर ज्यादा ध्यान है उसका. बट वेयर एज द HTML स्ट्रक्चर एज वेल एज अपीयरेंस के ऊपर भी आपको ध्यान देना पड़ता है. So that is what the basic difference between these two. Then HTML uses a fixed unchangeable set of tags. So all these are predefined. You cannot change the meaning or any other predefined. Okay, so these are predefined. But whereas in XML, you can create your own tags. You can create with your own name also. So there is no restriction. So this is what it is called as extensibility. So that's why this is called as XML. So this extensibility is provided by the own set of tags creation as part of the स्ट्रक्चर डिजाइनिंग. तो जैसे जैसे आपको स्ट्रक्चर देना है आपके नाम के हिसाब से या आपके कंपनी के नाम के हिसाब से, तो आप इम्प्लीमेंट कर सकते हैं. बट दिस इज नॉट पॉसिबल इन HTML. Then processing rules, no strict rules are there. Browser will still generate data to the best of its ability. So there are no stricter rules that you can give by using the HTML, but browsers are very much lenient in considering, even though if you are missing out the end tag, or if you have wrongly written something, it will try to simply render. Okay, even though you have written something, comment आपने open किया है, comment लिखेंगे कैसे HTML में? Suppose I will give an example. Suppose आपको comment लिखना है. So in this way, dash dash exclamation dash dash, and this is my comment. Okay, you have you got a 2 to 3 lines of comment for your HTML. बट प्रॉब्लम क्या है कि आपने XML एक्सक्लेमेशन के बदले में कुछ और सिंबल दे दिया, आपने गलती से पाइप दे दिया या डैश डैश के बदले में सिंगल डैश दिया. देन व्हाट हैपेंस, सिंपली इट विल गेट प्रिंटेड ऑन द ब्राउजर. इतना ही होता है, ज्यादा से ज्यादा क्या होगा, वो प्रिंट करेगा. So because browser will still generate data to the best of its ability, it will try to identify what you want to convey to the browser. अगर उसको समझ में नहीं आ रहा तो क्या करेगा, simply it will try to render that content. Okay, but whereas in XML strict rules must be followed or processor will terminate the processing of the file. वो क्या करेगा, simply it will give an error, terminate कर देता है. So that's why it is stricter. HTML is somewhat stricter, but whereas XML is somewhat stricter, whereas HTML is very much lenient. Next, HTML and XML look similar because they are both HTML languages. The root is same. Both HTML and XML use elements enclosed in tags in this way. Both use tag attributes in this way. Okay, so all these are tag attributes. Then both use entities. All these are applicable because they are coming from the same parent. Okay, all these are available in the HTML. So that's why we can do everything whatever written here, both in XML as well as in the HTML. Then HTML is for humans because websites we generally make for the humans, not for the programs. But whereas HTML is for the humans, whereas XML is for the computers. HTML describes web pages, XML describes the data. In HTML, you don't want to see error messages about web pages you visit. Okay, generally you try to see the content, even though if it is an error, it will directly printing onto the browser window, and you just simply neglect that because ultimately humans can easily identify what is the actual data and what is not the data. Okay, so whether any error is occurring, user can identify something is wrong on this document. So at least he or she can identify. But whereas it is for the computers, rules are stricter and errors are not allowed, because something is missing or something is not strict to the rules of the XML. The end programs cannot identify like humans do. जैसे लोगों को easily समझ में आ जाता है कि printing mistake है या something is there, but programmers, programming languages or computer programs do not have any idea. They will simply try to give an error on that basis. Okay, so this is one more stricter way of implementing the XML. Browsers ignore and correct as many HTML errors as they can, so HTML is often sloppy. Current versions of the most browsers can display XML. However, browser support of XML tends to be inconsistent. Even though it is standardized, most of the times if you open the XML document in Mozilla Firefox, it will display in a different way. And if you open that same file in Chrome, slightly it will get different view. And in Microsoft Explorer, it may be given with some colors, extra structure in that way. So all these browser supports are there, but they are not at all uniform. Okay, so the rendering part is based on the parser engine, whatever the browser engine parser is equipped with. So that much portion it can parse, and accordingly it can give, or it can render, or it can give some error. So that's why it is somewhat inconsistent when we talk about the browsers only. But generally, XML is not meant for the browsers. It is for the data, so that any universal application can easily use that XML data. So that's why it is not meant for the browsers, but whereas HTML is meant for the browser. So that's why it is able to parse whatever the sloppy data is you are giving. आप अगर गलत भी देते हो तो वो ट्राई करेगा एज मच एज पॉसिबल रेंडर करने के लिए. बट XML का प्रॉब्लम क्या है कि ये ब्राउजर के लिए नहीं बनाया है, बट ऐसा भी नहीं है कि कोई स्पेसिफिक एप्लीकेशन के लिए इसको बनाया जाता है. इट्स एन यूनिवर्सल data format where any application can utilize the data according to its requirement. So that is the main difference between these two techniques. One is XML and second one is HTML. So now, what is XML? It's not a replacement of HTML. Okay, it's not a replacement of HTML, but we can see that HTML can be generated from XML by using some techniques like XSLT, some vector rendering. So different technologies are there. So XSLT is also based on that XML technology. So XML is not a replacement for HTML. Okay, so that's why if you know entirely XML, so you cannot directly use XML instead of this HTML, because it's not meant for the humans. It's meant for the programs. Second one is, it's not a presentation format, but XML can be converted into one presentation format. It's not a programming language. Okay, so XML is not a programming language, but it can be used with almost any programming language on earth. It's not a network transfer protocol, but XML can be transferred over a network, so that to transmit some data or to convey some meaning or to control some settings. So in that way we can use the XML. So basically what we can see, XML is not a transfer protocol. It's simply a markup language, but still we can use that to send some bytes of information over the network. So that is what the advantage it gives. Then it's not a database. So finally, XML is not a database, but XML databases you can be using all over the programmatic languages. Okay. So if you are doing the Microsoft language, even the SQL Server generally stores the data in the XML whenever you are doing the migration. All those databases are getting converted into the XML, and it will be simply storing, and accordingly it will be migrated to another proprietary format. It can be migrated to another proprietary format. So even if you are using the Microsoft Word, so behind the scenes XML is there. अगर आप वर्ड को ओपन करके देखेंगे तो अंदर में जो भी इंस्ट्रक्शंस दिया जाता है वो कंप्लीटली माइक्रोसॉफ्ट के वर्ड XML, MS XML बोलते हैं उसको, उसको बोलते हैं MS XML. So this entire Microsoft Word is actually used by this Microsoft XML. Again, it's an XML. Okay, so ultimately what we have understood is it's not a replacement to HTML, it's not a presentation format, it's not a programmatic language, it's not a transfer protocol, and it's not a database, but all these can be generated by this XML. Simply you can have an XML so that you can convert the data into either of the format available here. चाहे तो आप HTML बना सकते हैं XML को, चाहे आप प्रेजेंटेशन फॉर्मेट में कन्वर्ट कर सकते हैं, एंड प्रोग्रामेटिक लैंग्वेज में कन्वर्ट कर सकते हैं आपकी जो इंस्ट्रक्शंस को, देन नोट पर प्रोटोकॉल में यूज कर सकते हैं, अल्टीमेटली डेटाबेस जैसे भी यूज कर सकते हैं. ओके, देन एट्रीब्यूट्स वर्सेस एलिमेंट्स. दिस वी हैव ऑलरेडी डिस्कस्ड when to use the attributes and when to use the elements. Okay, so there are no hard and fast rules about when to use the child elements and when to use the attributes. And one good rule of thumb is that अगर आप मेटा डेटा को यूज करते हैं तो उसको ट्रीट करना चाहिए एट्रीब्यूट्स के फॉर्मेट में. देन अगर आपको डाउट है या it's not the main, it's the main information, then you have to invariably use it as an element. Okay, so it's about the metadata, then keep the data into the attribute format, but it is about the information, main information, then you have to keep that in the elements. So differentiate between data and metadata. Ask yourself whether someone reading your document would want to see a particular piece of information. Okay, great. So if you have any doubt when we do the practical case studies, whenever you are getting some doubt like whether I should write this in an element format or should I write this in an attribute format, simply ask yourself whether someone reading your document would want to see a particular piece of information. Suppose वो information को look up कर रहा है, if that information is pretty much important from the user point of view, then you are going to create an element. Simple funda is that. If the answer is no, then information is going to an attribute format. So if all tags were stripped from the document along with all the attributes, the basic information should still be present. जैसे हमने एक एग्जांपल देखा था महात्मा गांधी के ऊपर में, बर्थ डेट, डेथ डेट, वो सब दिया है, but if that information is not that much important, like who is that person and what he has done, so then you can simply strip that all the attributes information. You have to retain the main information still in that XML. जैसे आप attributes को strip कर लेंगे, still you are going to get the basic information available in that XML. So that's how you have to design whenever you are going to create a XML document. Okay, so that's why you just keep remember attributes are good places to put ID numbers, some unique identifiers, some URLs, some metadata information. So in that way you can treat that attribute information, but main information is generally retained in the element tags. So elements are the crucial tags for giving the structure as well as providing your main content for your document. Okay. So also it is recommended not to use attributes as far as possible due to the following reasons. Too many attributes, like there is no restriction to have an element only to give with attribute 1, then attribute 2, then attribute 3, attribute 100. So there is no restriction, but if you stuff too many attributes in a given XML element, what it does is it will reduce the readability. So that's why it is not recommended. So as such, a compiler will never give any error if you are providing too many attributes. Like आपने 50 ले लिया, 100 ले लिया, तो कोई problem नहीं है. But try to restrict so that human readability will be there, and you are not going to ultimately bogged by the complexity of the attribute lookups. Okay. Then attributes cannot contain multiple values, but elements can. So A1 is equal to, suppose this is a user ID. A1 is equal to some 1, then comma 2, comma 3, ऐसा allowed ही नहीं है. A1 is attribute 1 is having the value of 1, either 2 or 3. A single value will be there for any given attribute. If you want to stuff any other thing, you can take an additional attribute, in that keep that additional value of 2. ओके, सपोज आपको स्टूडेंट का रोल नंबर स्टोर करना है, स्टूडेंट का रोल नंबर तो एक ही रहता है, स्टूडेंट का रोल नंबर 10-10 नहीं रहते, सो यू कैन कीप दैट एज स्टूडेंट रोल नंबर एज वॉट एवर द रोल नंबर you want to store. Okay, so attributes cannot contain multiple values. Elements के लिए valid है, but attributes के लिए a single attribute cannot contain multiple values. Attributes are not easily extendable for future changes. Okay, so easily आपको information change करना है तो it is not that much easier in the attributes. Attributes cannot represent logical structure. अपना logical structure ऐसा ऐसा जाता है, but एलिमेंट के अंदर हम एट्रीब्यूट को प्रोवाइड करते हैं. स्ट्रक्चर इसका कोई रहता नहीं है, इसका स्ट्रक्चर इस एलिमेंट के लिए सीमित है. एट्रीब्यूट देते हैं तो यहाँ पे द सेकंड एट्रीब्यूट इज ओनली मींट फॉर दिस एलिमेंट, थर्ड एट्रीब्यूट इज ओनली मींट फॉर दिस एलिमेंट. सो दैट्स व्हाई दे कैन नेवर प्रोवाइड द लॉजिकल स्ट्रक्चर्स, बट एलिमेंट्स टुगेदर विद देयर चाइल्ड एलिमेंट. बट एलिमेंट्स को हम स्ट्रक्चर दे सकते हैं. दिस इज द रूट एलिमेंट, दिस इज द सब एलिमेंट, दिस इज द नेस्टेड एलिमेंट, अगेन वन मोर नेस्टेड एलिमेंट. ऐसा आपको स्ट्रक्चर के साथ आप डिजाइन कर सकते हैं by the help of the elements. Attributes are difficult to access by the parser. So it's not difficult, but mostly sometimes some parsers may not give that much importance to the attributes. Attribute values are not easy to check against DTD. Sometimes attribute values are not that much easier to check against the DTD. We will see that in the practical demonstrations. Okay, so that's why attributes are having some lesser significance in compared with the element declaration, but they are also important. They are also important part of the XML design. These are also very valid implementations, but they do have some lesser implementations when you compare with the element declarations. That's what you have to understand. So attribute names again they must begin with a letter. आप letter के साथ start कर सकते हैं, otherwise underscores के साथ start कर सकते हैं. Like we do for the element. जो element के लिए अपना rules है, same rules यहाँ पर भी applicable होता है. Okay, so जो हमने rules देखा है element declarations के लिए, same rules attributes के लिए भी valid है. So start you have to with a letter, or you can start with an underscore. Subsequently, you can take some number or some text character in that way. Okay. So subsequent letters in the name may include letters, digits, underscores, hyphens, periods. Everything is valid. But starting में आपको number नहीं ले सकते, and space नहीं ले सकते. So these are the rules that are again valid for the attributes also, like we have seen for the XML element. जो XML elements के लिए जो valid rules है, वही rules इसमें भी applicable है. They may not include white space also. This is also there in that element declaration rules. So here is one more example. This is the element name. This is attribute name. So now you may easily identify what is an attribute name. And this is attribute value. So this is the value of an attribute. What is the attribute name? Name is language. Value is English. Similarly, what is the attribute name for the movie element? Movie is an element. Attribute name is src. And what is the value of the src attribute? RRacing.move. So in that way, you can define your own attributes, their values in a given element name. Okay. And this is the root element. This root element is actually enclosed here, in which we got the PC data as well as one more element. So this is what? This is mixed element or mixed tag. So this is a mixed tag for the greeting element. Okay. The same tag may not have two attributes with the same name. See here carefully this example. I have an element with the name rectangle. So this is the element name. Okay. अब सभी को समझ में आ रहा है, this is the element name. Rectangle is the element name. But it got two attributes with the name side, and this is illegal because you cannot take same element name twice for a given element name. एक ही एट्रीब्यूट का नाम सेम एलिमेंट के अंदर आप दो बार यूज नहीं कर सकते. सेम एलिमेंट है, यहाँ पे देखो सेम एलिमेंट है बट इसको दो बार आप नहीं दे सकते. So this is not at all valid. Okay, understood? So coming to the next example, again one more element with the name box. Element name क्या है? Box है. Box के अंदर sides दिया गया है. First attribute is capital side. Second attribute is small side. Third attribute is sentence side. यहाँ पे देखो case sensitivity important है XML में. All caps, lower in the text, and sentence format. These three are different. It's not like the earlier example. ये example में दोनों पे दोनों same है. ये example में the case sensitivity is same to both of the attributes. But in this example में this is first element which is valid. This is second attribute actually. This is also valid. This is third attribute which is also valid because the case sensitivity is different in these three attributes. That's why it is legal. Programmatically, from the parser point of view, from the XML compiler point of view, this is pretty much valid. But what can happen is, it is creating some confusion in the minds of the reader. Suppose मैं एक human legible format में अगर पढ़ रहा हूँ, there is a box, attribute का नाम side है 8 cm है, दूसरा भी side है 10 cm है, तीसरा भी side है 31 cm है. So user may get confused. So what to take when I am calling this 10 cm? Because when I pronounce, these three will give the same meaning. So semantics are not clear. Okay, so the semantics means the understandings of the element name or the attribute name is not that much clear. This is also side, that is also side, and third one is also side. So the semantics are not at all clear. So that's why even though it is legal from the parser point of view, still we do not have to use this. It's not recommended. First one is illegal. This one is illegal. This example is illegal. And the second one is, it's legal but not recommended. Okay, so it is not recommended. Second one is not recommended. But you can ask, like, then what else we can take? You can, suppose this is a box. So box can have a length, box can have a breadth, and box can have a height. So in that way you can convert them into a human legible format. And if you are converting them into the length, breadth, and height, anyway it is not colliding with the semantics. So users are also easily able to identify what you are conveying by that element name. Okay, so box के अंदर length, breadth, height, even though they may be having same length, breadth, and height, but still length is something different, which is not breadth is considered. So breadth is considered, which is different when both others are considered. Okay, so ये कभी भी clash नहीं करेगा. So this is what the importance of the semantics. Even though it is legal in the eyes of the parser, but from the human legible format, please avoid these kind of implementations. Okay. Then attributes values are also strings. Even when the strings shows a number as the length, attribute below the number is 2 characters 7 and 2, not the binary number. Okay, so this is also we have discussed in the previous session. अगर आप कोई इंटीजर भी ले रहे होंगे तो कोई न्यूमेरिक डिजिट्स को आपको रिप्रेजेंट करना है, still they have to be quoted either in a single quote or in a double quote. They are mandatory things. Okay, so that means attribute values are always strings. इसके अंदर आप इंटीजर दे दो, स्ट्रिंग दे दो, नेम दे दो, बुलियन दे दो, कोई भी वैल्यू प्रोवाइड करो, they are simply treated as strings. So that's why we are anytime appending with this single quotes or double quotes. So these are the rules for the attributes. And in addition to that, sometimes you want to convey some additional implementation. Suppose you can see यहाँ पे क्या लिखा है, starting is the single quote 7 inches. Inches को मैं represent करूँगा by double quotes. Then I am going to close this with a single quote. आपको यहाँ पे दिख नहीं रहा होगा, देखो यहाँ पे 2 है, उसके बाद ये जो स्टार्टिंग वाला हमने बंद किया है सिंगल कोट के, बिकॉज आई वांट टू रिप्रेजेंट रेक्टेंगल इज 7 इंचेस. 7 इंचेस को मैं कैसे रिप्रेजेंट करूंगा भाई? डबल कोट्स. बट डबल कोट में जैसे ही दूंगा तो ये वाला प्रॉब्लम आ जाएगा. ठीक है, यहाँ पे जो हमने दिया है ये वाला प्रॉब्लम आ जाएगा. उसको एस्केप करने के लिए आई विल स्टार्ट विथ ए सिंगल कोट, देन आई विल राइट वट एवर द numeric digit, then I will represent with that inches, then I will close with the apostrophe. So this is how we can represent the data. Similarly, 8.5 is also defined in the same way. Clear? But if the attribute value contains both single and double quotes, इस केस में क्या हुआ, अपने को डबल कोट्स लेना है तो ऐसा हमने कन्वर्ट किया. बट कभी कभी ऐसा हो सकता है कि आपको सिंगल कोड भी यूज करना पड़ता है इन द वैल्यू फॉर्मेट, एंड डबल कोड भी लेना पड़ता है. सपोज 7 feet, व्हाट इज द हाइट ऑफ ए पर्सन? 5 feet 4 inches, ऐसा मुझे रिप्रेजेंट करना है. 5 feet 4 inches, सपोज एग्जाम्पल के लिए मैं कंसिडर कर रहा हूँ. इसमें सिंगल कोड भी आ रहा है एंड इसमें डबल कोड भी आ रहा है. बट इन दोज केसेस व्हाट यू हैव टू डू इज you have to convert them into the entity references. Okay, so apostrophe को बोलने के लिए ampersand apos, quotes को बोलने के लिए क्या करेंगे? सिंगल कोट्स, डबल कोट्स को कोट करने के लिए QUOT जैसे यहाँ पे लिखा है. ठीक है, so in that way entity references you have to take. So here width is equal to 10 feet क्योंकि apostrophe यहाँ पे, and 6 quotations, that means inches, 10 feet 6 inches. So in that way you have to convert them, because XML parser के लिए single quote and double quotes अगर आप देंगे तो वो invalid हो जाएगा, because ultimately they have to embed within a single or double quotes again. So that's what the limitation. So for those scenarios you have to convert them into the entity references. These are called as entity references, and then you can safely use the whatever the data that you want to provide for your attribute declaration. Okay, so ये escaping तरीका है ये. And not only that, we can embed some external style sheets also. So how to integrate the external style sheets? HTML में आप क्या करेंगे? If you are going to create an XML style sheet, basically this is the root element. In the head portion, ultimately what you are going to write is this, the following one. There is a link which is having the relation as a style sheet. The type is text oblique CSS. Sometimes you have to take a type is equal text oblique JavaScript. Okay, but JavaScript link करना है तो आप दूसरे तरीके से भी कर सकते हैं. But generally the way we link up the things is type is equal text oblique CSS for the CSS, text oblique JavaScript for the JavaScript files, and a text oblique XML for the XML files. In that way you can embed the things. Then whatever the path. So HRF means hyperlinking reference कहाँ पे है? जैसे आपका जो डोमेन के अंदर कोई डॉक्स है, देन डॉक्स के अंदर आपका कोई स्टाइल शीट है, yes1.css. So this is how you can take the data. This is how you can represent the data. Okay, so this is how we can link up the things in the HTML. Similarly, for the XML, we have this PI processing instruction. See the PI directive XML style sheet. So the directive is XML style sheet. Again, having the same things like href, because it is from the HTML format, and type. Okay, only difference is the PI declaration, the directive of the XML PI, which you want to differ from that of HTML representation. बाकी सब सेम है. Type is equal to text CSS हमने HTML में दिया है, यहाँ पे text CSS हमने XML में दिया है. दोनों सेम है. Same path is also same. Only difference is the PI is going to be differed. And what is text CSS? This is the MIME types. So many MIME types are there: movie, CSS, JavaScript, XML, application. Okay, so many different MIME types are available, and all these are looked up by the HTTP protocol. So what kind of format is actually this document is containing? तो उसके लिए हम ये देते हैं. And I want to, the style sheet technologies presented with CSS, XSL, XSLT are all related enabling to display contents. देखो XML का बहुत सारे peripheral technologies भी evolve हुए हैं and they are, आप पढ़ के भी समझ सकते हैं, इसलिए मैं ज़्यादा explain नहीं कर रहा हूँ. There are extended document standards that were that have been created by using the XML as the main language. There are some XML languages like mathematical markup language. So this is generally used by the mathematical researchers or scientists. Okay, whenever they have to share the data, they can create the content in the MathML. Then chemical markup language, CML. Legal XML for court documents. If you want to prepare, it is having some structured way of implementing the legal documents. So that's why it is called as legal XML. The NewsML, it can able to easily embed with the data of the textual content, audio and video and image formats. Because NewsML में क्या होता है कि dynamically data आपको न्यूज़पेपर के लिए प्रिंट करना है या पीडीएफ या some SVG formats के लिए तैयार करना है, तो the NewsML is capable to do all those things. It is having the easier integration of the text, audio, video and images format. So this is also one peripheral technology or extended document standard that has been created out of the XML. XML के basis के उसके ऊपर बनाया गया है. The next HTML, it is the stricter way of implementing the HTML, taking the XML well formedness in constant. तो ये क्या करेगा, strict करेगा document को. आप अगर paragraph को open किया है but end नहीं किया है, then it validation आप करेंगे. W3C के साइट पे validation का एक tool है, वो आप जब करेंगे, when it sees the end tag P is missing, then it is not going to validate or it is not going to pass your HTML, XHTML document. So आप generally ये SEO programmers use करते हैं. SEO programmers के लिए काफी अच्छा tool है ये for the validity of the XHTML content. क्योंकि Google जब देखता है तो how much valid the document content is prepared, ये भी देखता है. So that's why XHTML is nowadays pretty much used instead of the HTML. And XHTML roots कहाँ से आया है? XML से आया है. So when you see the XHTML, it is nothing but the XML document only. It is having the element names, it is having the attributes also. Then WML, wireless markup language के लिए इसको बनाया गया है. Earlier times में आपके जनरेशन अगर नहीं देखा होगा, WML करके एक मार्कअप लैंग्वेज है, उसको यूज करके लाइक वेब प्रोटोकॉल के थ्रू, वायरलेस एप्लीकेशन प्रोटोकॉल के थ्रू कंटेंट को डिस्प्ले करते थे. एक 2 डेकेड्स के पहले, मतलब एक 15 साल पहले ऐसा यूज करते थे. बट नाउ इट लॉस्ट इट्स शील. अभी इसका ज्यादा महत्व नहीं रह गया, इसका अभी एक तरीके से डेथ हो चुका है. Because nowadays Android and all the mobile applications are able to deliver the content in a much easier and sophisticated way. So ये भी WML भी उसी के बेसिस पे जनरेट हुआ है. SVG, scalable vector graphics, आप XML के बेसिस पे आप डिफाइन कर सकते हैं, and it can render the data both on the web on the print media also dynamically. काफी अच्छा वेक्टर ग्राफिक्स को जनरेट कर सकते हैं. And this is also one of the XML model. SMIL, synchronized multimedia integration language, is another XML vocabulary designed to bring new levels of multimedia authoring integration to the web. Okay, so many technologies are there. RDF, resource description framework, then XForms, XML based methods for describing forms designed to move. HTML में आप कभी फॉर्म डिजाइन किए होंगे तो आपको इनपुट टाइप के लिए वो लेना पड़ता है. आपको याद होगा अगर किसी ने किया होंगे तो इनपुट टाइप इज इक्वल टू टेक्स्ट. किसी को अगर किसी ने किया होगा तो हाँ, ये सब करना पड़ता है. बट वेयर एज इन XForms, it's completely different and it's very good way of representing your HTML formats so that to capture the data. Then XAML, Microsoft का Silverlight technology है. So it's almost like comparable with that Flash. Okay, सो सिल्वरलाइट फॉर्मेट को डिजाइन करने के लिए XAML आप यूज करेंगे. So what is XAML? It is again one XML format. It's for the application markup language and XML यूज करके आप इंटरफेसेस डिजाइन करेंगे. XAML यूज करके आप इंटरफेसेस डिजाइन करेंगे. अगर आपने किसी ने एंड्रॉइड डिजाइन किए होंगे तो बैकग्राउंड में आपका XML काइंड ऑफ web.xml करके आपको एक बनता है. सो सिमिलर एक XML फॉर्मेट के थ्रू आपका इंटरफेसेस जनरेट करता है XAML. एंड दिस इज जनरली यूज्ड इन डायरेक्ट टेक्स्ट ग्राफिक्स. सो आप अगर विंडोज यूज करते हैं, विंडोज ओएस, सो बिना डायरेक्ट टेक्स्ट का आपका ग्राफिक्स कार्ड नहीं चलता. सो डायरेक्ट टेक्स्ट का कैपेबिलिटी कहाँ से आ रहा है? XAML के थ्रू आ रहा है. सो इन दैट वे दे हैव रिफाइंड देमसेल्व्स इन अ वेरी डिफरेंट वे. एवरीथिंग इज बेस्ड ऑन XML. आप विंडोज बात करो, एप्लीकेशन प्रोग्रामिंग लैंग्वेज बात करो, डेटाबेस बात करो, माइक्रोसॉफ्ट के टेक्नोलॉजीज में एवरीथिंग इज बेस्ड ऑन XML. देन सोप, अभी तो इसका पॉपुलैरिटी कम हो गया ऑन द एवोल्यूशन ऑफ द जेसन. जेसन के पहले क्या यूज करते थे? सोप यूज करते थे. ओके, सो सिंपल ऑब्जेक्ट एक्सेस प्रोटोकॉल इज व्हाट इट रूल्ड एक्चुअली till 2010 or some 2015 also. ओके, 2015 तक ये बहुत ज्यादा चला था. नाउअडेज जैसे जैसे जेसन का एवोल्यूशन आ गया तो धीरे धीरे कम होता जा रहा है इसका इम्प्लीमेंटेशन. बट स्टिल सम सिक्योर्ड एप्लीकेशंस के लिए सोप के अलावा आपको कोई दूसरा अल्टरनेटिव नहीं है. अगर आप काफी फाइनेंशियल रिलेटेड एंड्रॉइड ऐप बना रहे होंगे तो आप जेसन के ऊपर रिलाई नहीं कर सकते हैं. आपको रिलाई करना है सोप के ऊपर. एंड अगेन व्हाट इज सोप? अगेन द सोप इज XML based implementation. Then XML sets. Whenever you want to query something, XML GL, XML query language, XML query, XQuery. So these are some technologies which are based on the querying capabilities on the databases that you have. Okay, बहुत सारे स्टैंडर्ड्स है. XBRL बिजनेस रिपोर्टिंग लैंग्वेजेस के लिए, बैंकिंग के लिए BIPS यूज कर सकते हैं, इंटरनेट पेमेंट सिस्टम के लिए. XUL यूजर इंटरफेसेस डायनेमिकली जनरेट करना है तो XUL यूज कर सकते हैं. XLinks, so these are the pointers. So these are the pointers for another XML, or you can treat them like as hyperlinks. So XLinks are very much used in industries. Then X pointers and XQuery, XPath, XSLT, XSLFO.